What are some of the reasons, though, behind Africa's worst humanitarian crisis today?
Thank you very much for having me, Beatrice. A number of factors account for the growing humanitarian need on the African continent. The most important one, which we have identified in the policy brief that we have just released, is conflict. I think this is not surprising in so many ways. The conflict map of Africa and the humanitarian need map of the continent pretty much correspond with each other. Over the course of the past few years, we have witnessed an increase in the number of conflicts on the continent and the impact that these conflicts are having, as well as we have also witnessed an expansion in the geographic spread of conflicts. But conflicts are not the only factors that account for the humanitarian situation on the continent. Other factors that we have identified include the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which have triggered new humanitarian needs, but also exacerbated existing ones. The climate change induced crises that have also created emergencies on the continent. And finally, of course, currently, the global context, which have, on account of the war in Ukraine, led to increased food prices, which have also affected the humanitarian situation on the continent.
Well, you've touched on conflict as one of the key issues that are impacting the continent. But insecurity, especially terrorism as well, continues to spread with considerable consequences on finances, economies, and people's safety. How can African leaders deal with what the chairperson of the AU Commission called a cancer that is gradually infecting all regions of the continent?
I think it is a very high time for having a very serious conversation and a candid conversation about why Africa is witnessing a very troubling growth in the threat of terrorism. If you go back to 2010, there were a couple of regions where pockets of terrorist operations were happening. Today, all the 5 regions of the continent, as we have reported in our special research report yesterday, are affected by terrorism. And in January, during the opening session of the AU summit, the AU Commission chairperson said that there is a need for a real new approach to dealing with the crisis on the continent. And we believe that this new approach needs to have a shift from a state-centric approach to dealing with terrorism to a human-centric approach to terrorism, which basically means the following. The current approach is not delivering. And it's not because there isn't investment and increasing use of hard security instruments, such as the military, such as the police, intelligence, criminal justice. It is despite the increasing investment in and use of these instruments that we are witnessing an expansion in the terrorism threat. And we are therefore suggesting that we need to shift the focus in our diagnosis away from considering terrorist groups as being the primary problem to considering the political and socioeconomic governance pathologies that actually create disaffection among communities as the primary target of policy intervention.